you don't need to have severe trauma to end up with a fucked up blueprint of how to love. Like, we're in a epidemic of really hot, successful, like single women who it is harder for them to find someone.
Today's guest is Julie. She's a psychologist with a sophisticated background on relationships. Her content reaches millions of people across TikTok, inspiring healthier dating, often through hormonal and biological evidence. Julie has a private practice where she does group trainings, but today she's going to give us a free session. This episode will help you love yourself, your partner, or your future partner that much better. It'll also help you know if that person you've been obsessing over actually likes you or not. So it's going to be such a fascinating episode. Help me in welcoming my guest, Julie. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I was just telling you, I saw your TikTok videos. I've had multiple people send them to me, and I'm like, it's so cool the way that you break down the psychology of dating. So if you don't mind, kind of tell our guests like how you started to educate yourself about this and all that, like for dating relationship stuff.
Yeah, so I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and I have a master's degree in psychology. So that gives me the academic background of it. But then I think just being a woman dating in this world, and especially now, there's so many for myself, my friends, that seem kind of hopeless. We feel like it's never been worse in dating. So there's just a genuine interest that I had in it as well, to be educated. I have a ton of clients as well that I take on. They're navigating the world of dating, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so I was telling the guests before that we're going to get a free session with you, so we feel so lucky. It was interesting because on a video we just posted with another influencer that was on, she was talking about how she likes to have a man chase her, not the other way around, because a lot of society has kind of changed that, and it's like females can really pursue the man. And she's like, no, I'm still traditional. But there was a clip that said like, you know, I don't believe in chasing the man. Like, I'm the tequila, not the lime. And that video is like now has like 7,000 comments of people just debating and going back and forth, and so many men that you could just feel that there's like a lot of pain around it all. Yeah. Like, well, you guys told us not to chase you, or we're a creep, and like all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, there's
Don't
so
run
much
after us, but
yeah, I'm like, there's a balance. But anyways, it really just showed me how like much dating has changed, and how much there's a lot of pain around it, and we're all in social media now, so it's hard to connect with people, especially in person. So what advice would you give to someone that wants to date and maybe isn't getting approached by other people, or is nervous to talk to other people when they're out?
So do you mean for men or women? Because I think it's different.
Let's go through both.
Okay, so for women, I am on the last guest side. Well, it depends. Okay, so you have to decide on what kind of dynamic do you want in dating. Yeah. If you want it to be where you are the traditional male and traditional female, and you get to decide in that. I do believe that there's polarities in that, and so there can only be one or the other. Maybe as the relationship grows, you'll find each other going in and out of those roles, but when you're first in that pursuit, you have to decide for yourself whether you are male or female. You are going to decide if you want to be the male energy or the female energy. And in that, if you want to, that you're going out, how do I date? If you decide you want to be the traditional female role, then that is the more passive. I say whoever speaks first is male. Mm-hmm. So, right, if you are out in a bar and you see a guy, you approach him, that already created a dynamic where you are in the masculine energy.
That makes sense. Wow.
Yeah. So decide which one you want, because the problem then becomes, it's not bad to pursue a man. The problem is, though, is that then women, they've done the heavy lifting, they've done the chasing, they've done the pursuit, they've done the date setup. Sometimes they even pick where they should go. They pick the time. They're doing everything for this guy. And then they wonder, well, why am I not getting those traditional female things? Why doesn't he plan dates all of a sudden? It's like, girlfriend, you did it since day one, since you met him. So the roles, number one, you're probably going to attract someone if he didn't pursue you and you had to go up to him. You're already attracting someone that's probably more passive.
So, and in their feminine, right?
And he's in his feminine, yeah. So it starts really in that beginning stage. However, then there's the question as a woman, okay, well, I'm just supposed to sit there. It's like, attract, be in your, if you want to meet someone, go out, look beautiful, be in your happy, be in your feminine energy, and you're going to wait. It is, you do need patience these days to catch a good man.
It's true.
Forget that.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that we forget that being in your feminine energy is super powerful. And I even have a hard time getting back into my feminine because I work a lot. And then it's like hard for me to feel like girly.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like,
and you can switch back and forth. I think that's the other thing is we can be, and you have to honestly be, when we're working, you're going to be in that masculine role because you have to pursue and get things done. And there's checklists and all of that, but you get to be in a different role inside of your relationship. And women reject their own femininity so often, and they do it in really small ways. I tell my clients, I'm like, when, you know, think about yourself sitting in a waiting room and someone goes, do you want water? Do you want a water? And you go, oh no, I'm okay. Right then you just rejected, because in your feminine, that is a receiving energy. Think about all the times we block, even sometimes women will block it from their partners. He'll say, you know, oh, let me get the door for you. Let me get this. Oh, your hands are full. Let me carry this. Oh, no, it's okay. I got it. And in that, you are staying in your masculine. You're also rejecting his masculinity.
wow, that's so cool. That's so interesting. Okay, so what about for a man? What's the way that you would tell a guy give a guy advice on how to approach more females?
Approach them. Do it. Move. Get up off the chair. See, like, don't be a creep about it, but you're allowed to pursue and say hi. Don't have your ego be so fragile. It's okay, like, to just, if it's a no-go. But I do think, unfortunately, there's a lot of men who are obsessed with being chased, and then just know that it's like, okay, well, then you are choosing to be in the feminine role, and you're going to attract probably a more masculine woman. So if you want that, that's okay. That type of relationship is allowed to exist, but that's normally not what they want either. And then you have to decide in that, what is important for you if you're trying to decide, okay, well, which role do I want to be in? Typically, the masculine energy is going to prioritize wanting to be respected. The masculine energy, the thoughts to be respected. The feminine energy typically wants the feelings to be cherished. If, however, you're dealing with someone who is narcissistic, they will want both their feelings to be cherished and their thoughts to be respected while doing neither of them for you. Wow. You can think of a relationship that if you've been in that where someone just wanted, and then you're also giving, having to respect thoughts while having your feelings not cherished, narcissistic relationship.
Okay, so let's get into a narcissist relationship. I always wonder if one of my exes were, and I still don't know how to like fully spot it. I've like read about like a narcissist and what the qualities are, but I still like, do you feel like if you saw one in a room, like you can spot it? Like if they're talking to you?
I mean, some of them are very masterful and they can be very charming. And I do think I'm pretty good, but who knows? What I'll say though is, so I've had a couple of videos go viral lately about, you know, things that, how to spot a narcissist. One of them that I did was, if you want to spot a narcissist, how did he treat you on your birthday? How do you treat you on Christmas? Did he ruin those holidays? There's people just going nuts so wild about how you can't call someone a narcissist. And obviously it's a short reel. Like, no, narcissism is like a diagnostic criteria that you have to meet to be a narcissist. However, in that, it matters less about the label. Like when you're saying, I'm still trying to figure out if the relationship I was in, if he was a narcissist. Even when I work with clients, I'll let them hold on to that label if it fills something in them. Like if it's important to them to have that label. But what I care more about is how are your feelings in that? How are you recovering from it? Does it still hurt you? Did it mess with your head? Did it mess with your self-esteem? Did it mess with the reality that you believe in? Those are way more important than even being like, are you a narcissist? You can tell if behavior is abusive. You can tell if behavior is toxic. If the label feels good for you to have because it brings some confirmation or peace, then hold it. But how someone treats you and how you feel about yourself inside the relationship is far more important.
What are a lot of narcissists gaslighters?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that.
And the difference between gaslighting and lying, you do have to lie to gaslight. But let's say, you can't make it to a friend's party. And so you say, oh, I'm sick. And she finds out you're out. You go, yeah, my bad. But a gaslighter will double down. You're going to tell me where I was at? You're always so paranoid. I think you're crazy. You've always been doing this. Other people have been saying that about you as well. That's where because it's making someone believe a reality that isn't real. But worse than that is then people will make decisions based on a reality that isn't real that you made them believe. And that's what happens in the relationships of I love you so much, you're my one and only, this and that, and then they're cheating. And that person then dedicates their life to that person, is loyal, is moving across the country for them, is helping them financially, whatever it is. They're making decisions based on a reality that isn't real. That's how I would say it's the most insidious part about gaslighting.
Okay, so give us a few bullet points of how to know when someone's in a narcissist relationship.
I would say lack of empathy is something to look out for. Don't necessarily look at how they treat you right away, because how they treat you in the beginning is probably going to be great, but how do they treat the wait staff? What do they think about homeless people? Narcissists have a very hierarchical type of thinking. The other one is too much too soon. That's going to be where your love bombing is. Is it an I love you right away? Are you babe, honey, sweetie? Are they trying to take trips with you right away, trying to lock it down? And the problem with this is, and this is where we get in trouble as women, because we're like, no, like I really am so awesome. That makes sense. Someone's in love with me day one. Makes sense. Checks out. I understand. However, they don't know who you really are. So whoever they love then is the projection. What people get wrong about narcissists and love bombing even is it's not as much of a lie to them in the beginning. A lot of people think they go into it with this lie. Some narcissists, they really do fall that fast. And that's where the devaluation stage really start to put you down, because they feel like once they see your true self that you trick them into it, and how dare you. And what they're really seeing is just who you are, and you're human and humans are flawed. So, but be careful when someone's saying, oh my gosh, you're so amazing, all of this, because they don't know you yet. So what do they love about you? They love the projection that they're making up about you in their head.
That's so wild. So yes, I was in a narcissist relationship. Now that you're saying that, what was I going to say?
Oh, and I'll say too, if you're at the end of your relationship and you're like, was this a narcissistic relationship? This is the cycle of it. It's going to be the love bombing stage at first to get you wrapped in, get you hooked. You're always going to be trying to get back to the love bombing stage. Then after that, you're going to go into the devaluation stage. That's where they start to put you down. You don't understand why they aren't doing all those nice stuff for you anymore. And you usually wait and you stay. You try to put yourself in their perfect little mold. If I can just be a little bit more perfect, if I can just do more, we can go back to this love bombing stage. And the devaluation, it might go back to the love bombing stage for a couple of days. You might fight, whatever. During these stages, though, they're still getting some type of narcissistic supply from you. A narcissist doesn't love you. They only love what you do for them. So everything about you is just an extension of them. That's why they really do admire you in the beginning, and then you're human and flawed, and they can probably do better. And so but there's also, narcissists have so much pathological envy. The things that they're putting you down for are likely the things that they are jealous of you for, that enrages them, that they're envious about. But they can't admit that to themselves. So now they hate you for it. So devaluation, and then it's the discard phase. Narcissists can either discard you by breaking up with you, by cheating on you. They'll usually by that point have their secondary narcissistic supply, because they literally need it to exist. So they'll have their secondary supply, and then they'll probably leave. And that's when people will be so confused. How could he move on so fast? This and that. It was already happening in the devaluation stage, discard phase.
Wow.
So if yours sounds like that, then probably yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I have so many questions. Okay, well, I want to talk about the love bombing, so I don't want to forget that as like what makes them even like what makes them see someone and want to love bomb so quickly because it like fulfills them to be in love? Or what
Yeah.
is it?
They're empty. And this happens as well with borderline personality types, which I would say is more common with women, but in narcissists with a borderline, there's something that's missing. There's a pain point. Narcissism is literally the coping mechanism to your own self-hatred. A lot of borderline traits is a coping mechanism to your fear of abandonment. So there is this emptiness that exists, and there's this self-hatred. But instead of turning inward and looking at that, so something else is wrong. So when they find something that feels good for the moment, you meet someone, they're exciting, they're good looking, whatever, it feels good. And so you then are like, this is going to be the thing to fix how empty and broken I am. That happens on a very subconscious level. They're just excited. But then their future thinking, oh, then we're going to get married and this and that. And all those shitty things I feel about myself won't be so shitty with this person. And then time goes on and you find with any person, no person can be that magic fix. It's just a Band-Aid. It's very temporary. So then what happened? Then you go in the devaluation stage because they're mad. They feel like they've been lied to. You're supposed to be this person to fix them.
Wow.
The emptiness. And you're not because they still hate themselves.
Wow. And so how is a narcissist usually raised to even become one?
Yeah. So there's some debate around that in the psychology field. People used to think it was, you could have those parents that just dote on you or kind of obsessed with their child, that you were the best. They don't really think that. They think that usually there's probably one parent that is more normal, and then there's a very inconsistent or abusive parent, a parent who will be hot and cold with their love, push and pull. You're not good enough. You're good enough today if you do this. You're not if you do that. Usually one parent may be okay, the other one that gave them trauma. And so that inconsistency, it comes as a trauma. Narcissism is a trauma response.
Wow. So can someone ever not like become not a narcissist anymore? Is that like possible?
There's debate around that as well.
And like, do they know they don't know they're a narcissist?
It depends. So it depends. Some people, you'd be surprised. Some narcissists are proud of it. I've heard plenty of narcissists are, oh yeah, I'm a narcissist. And it's kind of a joke. Some narcissists are proud of it though, because of the qualities they think it makes them better to be able to exploit people. They think they're smarter than other people because they can do that. They're more witty, pulling a fast one on them. They almost value those traits of being emotionless, being able to turn off their emotions because they view emotions as so stupid. And like, why would I need those? So they don't mind always having these narcissistic qualities. They've done studies where you can go and narcissistic criteria is much more in depth, but when they asked just based on 9 traits of if someone was a narcissist, they found that those people were able to answer if they had this trait. If they didn't, like, do you have empathy? They'd be like, nah, not for me. And so those 9 traits were rated the same as when they took those people who would have categorized as a narcissist, really in depth, looked at them, and they still rated as a narcissist from those small traits. So a lot of narcissists can still view like narcissistic criteria and have the self-awareness to know if that's them or not.
Wow. I was going to say too, like I am someone that has a lot of empathy. So, and I feel like I've attracted narcissists in some work environments
so this is really
and relationships. So now I'm like.
So I asked the question because I was curious. Sometimes you hear, by the way, narcissistic abuse is horrific. Like that is kind of narcissist being a buzzword. It's dark, it's insidious, it change how you view yourself for the rest of your life. So I was really curious. I'm like, what kind of victims do narcissists look for? So usually when you think of a victim of abuse, you might think of someone who's really weak, who doesn't have a lot going for them, who could be manipulated, and you don't view them in this positive light. But what they've actually found is that narcissists are very attracted to highly empathetic people, and then people who are successful. And typically people are very like good looking because right, that's an extension of themselves. So they would want someone who's beautiful, successful. However, someone who's also very empathetic, because then when they're abusing you, you're gonna be like, oh, well, what about your childhood? What made him like that? Oh, he's tried so hard. No one loved him. I can't leave him. Everyone else has abandoned him.
Yeah.
That's the perfect victim.
Yeah, that's wild. I know now that I've like really like realized it, I'm like, I need to make sure that like part of my life is done. But yeah, I definitely am like super empathetic, and like I can feel people's emotions, and then sometimes I'm like, okay, I need to like take a moment and go away. So I've been even learning that potentially I'm an empath, because I like can feel it and I take on people's emotions, and then I have to like take a moment, and that's a lot. But wow, that's so fascinating. Have you ever been in a relationship with a narcissist?
Yeah.
Wow.
A couple.
No way.
But on that side too, I'll say they were my favorite flavor. Like I grew up in an extremely abusive home where my love was only conditional. And so we also will always pick a partner that reaffirms those wounds inside of us. Mm-hmm. So if I picked a narcissistic partner, cool, forever I get to reaffirm the core belief that I have of, am I good enough? Mm-hmm. And that I'm probably not good enough. And if I can move myself just right, then maybe I can fix this childhood wound. If I can make the narcissist love me, that somehow goes back into my past and will make the parents who could never fully love me. But I'm also picking a partner that is incapable of love. So it's very similar. If you find yourself and you constantly attract narcissistic partners, abusive partners, is probably from the core wounds that you have that developed from your childhood, and you are finding someone that will always reaffirm that. I think a lot about like Khloe Kardashian and Tristan Thompson's relationship. Mm-hmm. It really makes me wonder how she was raised and how she goes back. So like she will always find someone that will make her feel unworthy, not good enough.
Wow, that's so interesting. That's so true. It's like they're almost like they feel more comfortable there.
Yeah, they do, because it's familiar. Mm-hmm. We always return back to home, even if home is broken.
So sad.
You know,
it's crazy. Do you believe in like a true love and a soulmate relationship?
I actually think that believing in a soulmate relationship can be very damaging and toxic. Like I would love to, because there was a time where I used to, and as little girls, you know, we're talking about the fairy tale romance. However, I've seen the aftermath of people who hold on to this idea of soulmates, and it's usually to protect their cognitive dissonance of them staying in an abusive relationship. And what I mean by that is, if they are in an abusive relationship, they have to admit, okay, then I must not really be respecting myself, must not love myself, why can't I walk away? But if it's a soulmate, then there's only this person actually understands me. Mm-hmm. I only feel this way with a person. They've actually done studies too where they've looked at people who are in a healthy relationship, and they said, what do you like about this person? And they're like, they're amazing, they're sweet, they're caring, they're kind, I love how he is with children, whatever it may be. And then they asked people who are in a toxic, unhealthy relationship, what do you love about this person? And they went, I don't know, there's just something about him. And that's where you get the, honestly, delusion of soulmates of, but he just gets me, and I don't know, it's just something. Mm-hmm. That something, what it probably is a trauma bond, and it's a biochemical addiction to the ups and downs that you have with someone.
That's crazy. I was also going to say too, like when you just said that, when you first meet someone, are you supposed to feel like butterflies and excited? Because like I've dated people where you're like so in the moment, and you're like, you don't even look at your phone. You don't even know what time it is, because you're just having so much fun. You're talking, you're whatever. And then anytime I've dated someone where it's not like that, I'm like, okay, then this isn't, you know, supposed to be. And then it's like addicting to want to date someone like that again. Is that normal?
It's such a complicated question. And honestly, I am the same way, but so you have to have a massive amount of self-awareness. I grew up in an extremely abusive, chaotic household. Am I attracted to this person because it feels familiar and normal, and I'm attracted to what I experienced in my childhood, and I equate love with chaos? Or is this person also just boring? Like that happens. Some people are just boring. Yeah. And so I've talked a lot about this. I run an inner circle of women, and I have female clients asking the same question. And it's like, oh, am I only picking this person because they're toxic? Or, you know, is the person I'm supposed to be with, and if I want a healthy relationship, but it feels boring and I don't really fuck with that either. I really think you get to have both. But think about those toxic qualities that you like in someone, the like excitement and what's going to come next, and it's exciting. And there is a healthy reverse of that quality. So, for example, it could be someone who is spontaneous, is adventurous. I came to this conclusion because I think about my friends. Like, my girlfriends are so fun and spontaneous and funny, and we're giggly. Like, they're not boring, and I'm not attracted to them because they're toxic. But I had to find someone that was still exciting to me. Like, I'm not a boring person. I can't date a boring person, even if they're healthy and safe. I also think about my girlfriends is most of them are neurodivergent, and they have had some type of trauma, but they've healed through it. And so those are the qualities I think if you're someone who really struggles maybe dating boring and you're like, oh, I can only have the toxic person, then the qualities of adventure and spontaneity, someone who values newness is probably what you should attract.
Do you think that you could go on a relationship with go on a date with a guy and then like grow, like you should be growing to like them, or you go on a date with a guy and you're like, oh, there's a spark and like I feel excited? Like, what is usually better?
I think that you need both compatibility and chemistry. And you need to know that chemistry doesn't equal compatibility. But compatibility also might never turn into chemistry. So you could have the most intense chemistry with the bad boy, the toxic one, but it doesn't mean you're compatible. If he doesn't want to build a life with you, if he's unwilling to be honest with you, it's probably not very compatible. However, we've all experienced the guy who's perfect on paper and you just don't feel it. I think some people might grow into it. But for myself, I know I've tried to like fit whatever the square peg in a round hole. And it's like, that's not fair for them either. I was saying this to a client. I was like, I could not, she's talking about being on a date with this guy, perfect on paper. He was so nice. And she was like, we were kissing and I just was like, she's like, I was counting for, she goes, I was waiting for it to be over. And I'm like, could you imagine? I could not, if someone said that about me, like, oh yeah, I was kissing Julie, I was just waiting for it to be over. Like, I would be so hurt.
I know.
So I think on the reverse side of that, it's like, it's not also very fair for them if you're like, I'm not crazy about you. And maybe not after the first date, but if you're on the second, third, fourth date, you only need one.
You think you need one date to know? No,
you only need like one person. You're only going to date like one person, most likely.
Because I have some friends that will go on a date and then they will not really enjoy it too much. Like, oh, it was nice, but it was like, I don't really know if I'm like that interested. But they're like, I'll give him another shot, or I'll give her another shot. And then there's like other people that are like, oh no, I'm not. Like, if they feel that way, they won't give them another shot. And I've seen both ways, because some of the people that won't give them another shot, they're a lot of times always single because they cut people off too quickly. So I always wonder if like you should give people more of a chance.
It comes down to really knowing yourself though, because some people could be self-sabotaging, but other people might know. I honestly feel like I know someone in the first 5 minutes. And there's been times where I've tried because I'm like, well, nothing's really wrong, and it's always come back to the same thing that I felt, whatever the issue was on date one.
Yeah, it's so true.
It always comes back. So I don't know about giving people more chance. I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, so what are the hormones that men and women use to fall in love? And explain that to us. Educate us about it.
Yes. So this was a huge series that I had on my TikTok of how men fall in love. And it came from, I think, this very wrong idea of, number one, what I want to say, what you'll learn about these hormones is women will never win out with friends with benefits. If they're like, oh, we're just hooking up, there's biochemical reasons why women will never win out with that. But also the woman who stays with the guy and is hoping, oh, if we just sleep together a little longer, if I just stay around, like, he's going to come around. And there are reasons why that's not true. So one of the main reasons is because when we sleep with a guy, especially multiple times, again and again, we release oxytocin. Oxytocin is our bonding chemical. Men, when they're on the pursuit of you, they're going to be releasing testosterone. Their testosterone is that pursuit behavior, which again, that's why I say you should not chase a guy, because I want my man to be in his masculine and I want him to be releasing that testosterone. When you're doing the pursuing, he's going to have lower rates of testosterone. So that's him in the pursuit behavior. Another thing that I've had girlfriends or clients worry about, they're like, oh, what if I wait too long to sleep with him? Is he going to get uninterested? If he does, he was already not interested. Because honestly, the longer you hold out with a man who is interested in you, the higher his testosterone is going to go. What then happens if you sleep with someone on the first date or very early on into the relationship, his testosterone was firing off in the pursuit. You guys sleep together, it automatically drops. So right after you guys have sex, let's say, especially if it's night one, really early on, he likes you way less after the orgasm. You like him more because your oxytocin has just fired off. His testosterone just dipped down. Like he really doesn't like you right now, unless you guys have been seeing each other and his vasopressin has released. So vasopressin is his mate guarding behavior. It's kind of what promotes jealousy. Vasopressin also released after they solve a problem, after they solve a task. But vasopressin in men takes time to develop. So if his testosterone dropped, but vasopressin is there, then he's going to feel protective of you, like you're his girl, right? If it's not there, you can probably feel it. So women, though, who say, oh, I'm just like, we're just going to sleep together, it's fine. Like, I also just want to hook up. You will find, and if you've ever been in this situation, it's kind of like, oh yeah, he's not even that good looking. And then you start sleeping with someone, you're like, oh my gosh, I love him so much. I can't believe I ever thought he wasn't good looking, because your oxytocin is firing. Men do fire some level of oxytocin after they orgasm, but it's much lower than women's.
Wow. I also heard that when you like a guy, or like when you sleep with them, the girl like cares about them for like, I want to say like 2 weeks after at minimum. They're still like feeling really like wanting to be connected with them, and then a guy's only last 24 hours or something. I don't know if that's true. I had someone tell me that.
Ours is so much just stronger with, I mean, because we're meant to mother things, and oxytocin also releases in childbirth. However, I've had women go to me like, not me, like I don't release anything. And that is a huge indicator that something's wrong, and that it's probably a deep trauma wound. Because if you think then about animals, oxytocin is supposed to relieve for them to care for their young, but some animals eat their children in the wild when their cortisol levels are too high, and then that oxytocin isn't present. That happens because of stress. So I think about trauma and all of that.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think going back with the men and the vasopressin, when I say, like, you can tell when a man is in love because of the promises he makes and then keeps to you. That is a sign of vasopressin also being released. It's also a sign if you keep getting the guy who doesn't call you back, will make a date, cancel on a date, like his vasopressin is not present.
Wow.
It ain't you.
Yeah. What makes a guy like that?
What?
Like not able to hold his be accountable, like commit to something.
His mama. But it's also, how do we hold someone to those standards? If you're going to continue to sleep with someone, and I know people hate that because it's like, well, why does it have to be up to us? Well, it shouldn't, but don't expect him to change his behavior because he's not motivated to change his behavior. If you continue to sleep with him and he doesn't have to keep promises to you, why would he? Yeah, that's so true. Hopefully, like if he has good character, he will, but we can't create that in someone. So he is showing you that he does not have good character, and you are still showing him that it's okay. Yeah, and it's like that's a recipe for like being sad over a guy getting heartbroken. Like keep going down that path. Yeah, anytime I've had a guy that like doesn't hold their word, I'm just like, ugh, I'm grossed out now. But that's because I'm like, I've gotten older, I've learned. That was probably not something I had when I was younger. But now I'm like,
I just am not attracted to a guy that's not like a man.
That's
about,
good.
Yeah.
That's what I say to people. I'm like, it should be embarrassing to us that it's not absolutely repulsive that a man's giving you the bare minimum.
Yeah.
There's nothing about that should make you horny or excited or interested. That should be an ick.
Yeah.
Talk about icks.
And if you are attracted to that, what advice would you give someone that is attracted to that? Because then they're probably having things they need to heal within themselves.
Yeah. I mean, ask why, you know, and then you're going to ask the solution to it is let that guy go. And then people will say, okay, well, how do I say to all my clients, the question is never how do I, it's why don't you? So if you're saying, okay, how do I fix this behavior? Well, let it go. How do I? It's not how do you, it's why don't you? So why don't you let go of the man that gives you those mixed signals? Because you don't feel worthy of love, because you think that because you've probably had to prove your love before, because you're addicted to the ups and the downs. All of those reasons is what you should be looking at if you're attracted to that person.
Does a girl learn like relationships and how to be in love from their dad and a guy from their mom, or is it like a mix of both?
I don't think it's not one parent that will give it to them, but everything it's a blueprint. And you don't need to have severe trauma to end up with a fucked up blueprint of how to love, because even it could come as your parents didn't make it feel safe for you to be seen, or maybe they were just hard on you. A lot of people do come from horrific abuse, but it doesn't have to be that to have some messed up storyline of who you need to be, that you're unworthy. Deep unworthy wounds is usually what I see of why people keep attracting such messed up relationships.
Wow, interesting. Thank you. So I always know, like, personally, and I've known this since I was younger, that like I cannot have sex with a guy too fast because I will care too much, because I just care, because I have a lot of empathy and whatever. And so I'm always someone that has made them wait, but it's solely because I'm like, well, you have to love me before I'm gonna be with you, otherwise now I'm gonna be hurt. But then there is a lot of women that are like, think that's weird because they're not like that. So what makes the difference? And like, is there one that's healthier than the other? Or like, because we're promoting now a lot of days of like, just sleep around and it's not a big deal. Is that healthy, or is that, what is that?
Well, I would say number one, what do you want your end goal to be? If you want to just sleep around and you want to probably be the more masculine energy in the relationship, you know, you're the one on the pursuit and you're hitting it and quitting it. If that's what you want and you feel fulfilled, awesome. But
that makes sense.
There's a lot of people that I know that say that and they're not fulfilled. I do see the unworthiness wound, deep self-hatred, if you actually are sitting with them and you can kind of rattle it out of them. And then you have to decide too, if you want that committed relationship, like just sleeping with him for so long isn't going to get him to that point.
I was going to say, what about for men that sleep around with a ton of girls? First of all, to me, I'm like, I cannot date that guy. Like the moment a guy just starts like telling me all the girls they've hooked up with, or I hear a guy is hooked up with a ton of girls, I'm like, all right, not for me. But there's a lot of girls that like that they're like, oh, that's cool, he's hooked up with all these girls. I'm like, oh, I feel like that was like a high school thing, but some girls are like, oh, he can get whatever girl he wants. But what about for those type of men that sleep around all the time, hit it and quit it, don't get attached? Is it very similar energy to the female?
Well, so I think about when men glamorize it more so, because what does that say is that I am not okay with the things about me that make me me. And so I always have to pursue something externally. And so I'm like you, when I see it, I think of it as an ew, because I see so much of the wound there, of the brokenness, of how like fragile they are. I feel like sad for them because it's not a conquest. And I know that's, people are gonna be mad in that because that's what they want to believe about themselves. But it's, why do you have to? What are you trying to cover up? Why does it make you feel better about who you are that you can like get a conquest? So then that shows me that you don't have a strong sense of self, a strong self-esteem either, because you need something externally from yourself. But I definitely, I think men do struggle with commitment. And it does come from attachment wounds as well. And even more so in men, they're taught in society how they are supposed to be strong and not, they really equate vulnerability with weakness. And I don't think any of that's true, but those are the messages that they've been given. Like when I talk about, you don't need to go through horrific trauma to have a messed up blueprint handed to you. And some of that is just how in society we hand these men a messed up blueprint. That's like, you can't cry, you can't be weak, you can't do this. And so how could they? Being in a relationship is extremely vulnerable. I mean, even if we think about the act of like laying your head next to someone, it's like, you could stab me in the heart. You know, I don't know. It's very, you are really letting someone in unless you have things outside of you and you're like, nah, because I'm also letting this person in. So it's all very surface level to hide, to not have to have someone really open up, because it's more of a risk to lose someone you actually really love. And it's just like, oh, whatever. I don't like her that much anyways.
Yeah. I'm like someone that like, it takes me a while to get over someone, and I hate that quality about myself. Whereas my sister, she's like, can cut someone off and be like, all right, she's good. Like 2 days after, she's just chilling. She's like a dude. And I'm like, why does it drag so long out for me? But then I'm like, in a way that some of the things me and her have talked about, she's like, well, then you probably like genuinely love, where it's hard for her to like allow herself to be vulnerable. So it's kind of like that, right?
Yeah. If it's surface level feelings for surface level relationship, but if you deeply love someone, of course it's going to be much harder. And so there's pros and cons to that. The pro, obviously, to having those surface level feelings is you get to move on quicker, but you're also experiencing things like joy and like deep love, like true love at a more surface level. And then, cool. On the reverse, you get to experience things probably like depression and pain on a more surface level. I've always been a deep feeler since I was like little, but I know I love so hard, but I feel happiness so hard and enjoyment and fun. But then my like suffering is also very deep. That sucks. But that's just how I am. I probably couldn't trade it if I wanted to.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Well, what else was I going to tell you? Oh, I was going to say also, like when someone, I think there's a lot of people always say that like, okay, a female that sleeps around all the time is looked at bad, right? To a male. But then I'm like, I feel like a male sleeping around all the time is almost looked like not as good either. And there's like a double standard for it. But I also look at it as like giving yourself and your energy to that many people that easily is like not actually like holding your value, you know? And so like when a man does that, I'm like, okay, so you're just allowing anybody to have you. It doesn't take that. It's not hard to do.
I think
it's
the
not hard
only
to get.
people who have promoted the message that it's cool for men to sleep around with a bunch of people is like men. They're like, that's a good, it's like their own marketing scheme. They're like, I heard men are real cool who just sleep around with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Because they like want to. And they're like, but not women. That's gross.
Yeah.
And then, but unfortunately, like there are women that perpetuate that idea for both men and women. But I agree with what you're saying. I think, I'm like, if everyone can have you, I don't want you.
Yeah. And I was also hearing about how it's easier for a man to find, so say you break up with someone, they always say the man moves on quicker because it's easier for them to like settle down or find someone because they're maybe not as picky than a female. I always hear that too.
There's like some crazy stats coming out lately that it's like, most young men are not, like in their 20s, are not sexually active. So that would go, the reverse would be true. Wow. So here's what it is though. It is the men with the most options who are the, attractive, good looking, the masculine, the one with money. Those are the ones with the options. So they're like sleeping with a lot of people. The ones that don't have that aren't attractive, that aren't whatever, have those qualities that women view as worthy, they're not sleeping with people at all.
Wow.
So, and then you get the guy that it's like, he could have anyone he wants. He has all of the options. So why would he want to settle down? And those are who women want. Women tend to want to date up. And now we're in a society where women are also successful. We have all these beautiful women that are nice, driven, successful, intelligent, have an education. Where is our upper dating pool? But men date down, or they're willing to date down, and because it doesn't matter as much. They like that. They don't want a woman who probably makes more money, as there's a whole bunch of societal issues, blueprints that come with that.
Yeah.
So then you have, like, we're in a epidemic of really hot, successful, like, single women who it is harder for them to find someone because they want to date the, like, small pool of men who all of the women want to date them. So I don't know.
It's crazy to think about.
Bleak. It's not good news.
That's crazy.
I don't even have a solution. I'm trying to figure it out too.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of guys that are not getting access to those girls that we're talking about, and as they get more successful or more opportunities to talk to guys that are more successful and so forth. And that was like the main thing I actually saw on the Instagram video that was posted of one of the interviews I did about a girl wanting to be chased, was exactly that. They were like, there's so many men out there that are just like, well, you guys only want to be chased by the 2% in the room. Like, you're just mad about the 2%, in the room that's not talking to you. Like, you don't care about us. And I'm like, that's so sad.
I know.
But then I also want to believe that, like, okay, well then just if the more you can walk up to a girl and make conversation, like, it's hard to just judge someone based off you not speaking to them. Like, you don't even really know what that person likes or wants. Like, some girls don't care about that stuff. And so my advice was like, okay, well, don't be nervous to, like, make conversation, even if it's not hitting on them, being like, like, are you having fun here? Like, everyone wants to have conversation made with them. And it makes girls feel special when guys walk up to them, whether they want to admit that or not. They're like, oh, I look good tonight. Like, it makes them feel special. And if they don't, like, actually, like, take the time to engage, then peace out, on to the next. If anything, it's making you more confident as a man to hold your ground, because I think that it's all about energy and how you show up in the room. And looks are only so great until the personality and how you show up and owning your power is so attractive. There's a lot of guys that aren't attractive that can get a lot of girls because of how they show up, So,
well, here's the other side too of how we're talking about, women do want the upper caliber of these high value men, and then there's these men like, what the heck? Like, okay, well then that's your own fault. I've seen the hate comments on my video too, but I'm like, here's the other side of the gold digger argument that people aren't talking about. Is I'm like, have you been a successful, beautiful, smart woman who makes more money than a guy? And you're like, I actually don't care about that. The jealousy that comes out of that. I'm like, if you truly are a secure guy, then great. We probably could have a relationship. But I've seen it in myself and friends with clients of the woman just being like, okay, I just love you because I do. And that jealousy of, and I get why it happens, because so men are told for so long in their life that their worth is based on how much can you provide, what is the value that you give, and so they equate that obviously with monetary value, and so do we on some level, of course. And so for me, it's even less about me having a partner that's more successful than me, comes less out of I need it because like I need to be like lavished with all these gifts, but it's come from dating people who aren't, and how they devalue you and put you down and don't feel confident enough to celebrate you. And those like, men that are that angry, I'm sorry, that's you.
But you know what is really interesting as we're touching on this, and it might make some of the guys feel happy. I am not, only just because I work with so much talent, and I work with so much successful females, and like people would be surprised how often those females that are making tons of money every month are actually dating guys that are not successful. Like, it's almost like
are they happy? Like, is it a good relationship?
I mean, I've just seen so many like influencers that every guy wants dating a guy that like almost is like their little like does whatever they want for them and like follows them around.
She's choosing to be in the masculine role, and then that's the feminine
and
role.
I can see that that female feels more comfortable in that. They feel more in power and in control of the relationship, so they prefer that.
And it might come down to where you watch this and you're like, actually I do want to be the masculine, and that's probably where they've gotten to, is like, okay, I'm willing to be the masculine because I can provide and I feel comfortable in this, and I'm down would be respected. And then they're like, well, they also, you know,
Yeah, and then
might want that role.
I've seen another girl, another friend of mine, she was dating that, where the guy, like, she paid for the rent, she paid for all their food, she took care of him for like 2 years. He didn't really work much, and then she started to get resentment towards him, being like, you know, do something.
And that's what happens to when the women want to be, they're kind of like convince themselves like, oh no, I do want to be the masculine. And then the resentment will come out when you're like, actually, no, I don't.
Yeah. And now she's dating someone that like puts her in her feminine, and she's like, oh my God, I feel like a girl again. And she's like, it's like so fun. She's like, I feel like beautiful and all these things that she wasn't really feeling for a while. So I was like, that's cool. So it's just all interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting indeed.
What are your TikTok DMs like? Is it like females or guys that like are asking for stuff or like trying to hit on you, or what is it more like?
No, I feel like I'm like, are any girls' DMs really full with like quality men in your DMs? Like, I think we all have the like requested ones, and they're all just weird.
Yeah,
just weird, but knowing you to actually date. I get that with just having a following with guys in real life. They're like, your DMs are probably full. I'm like, no, they're not. It's all women. Yeah. My audience is like 95% women on TikTok. On Instagram, it's like 70% women on TikTok. I make content for women. My clients are women. That's my target audience. So no, I don't know.
It's interesting though, because
but that wouldn't work on me either. A man just, especially doing the whole, I don't know, pickup line stuff. It's not gonna work.
What about for the girls that are girls and guys? Mm-hmm. How do they know when someone is actually interested in them, or like say they really want to date a certain person? How do they go about getting them to take them seriously? Like, what are some tools you would use when it's like at the initial phase to like get someone else to take you seriously? Maybe start with girls.
Yeah, I would say like for either party, meet in person as soon as you can. I'm so not about the staying in the DMs or on the dating apps, because anyone can be anything online. So, and chemistry is so much different in person. Like, someone can be great when you see their photo and then you don't feel anything with them. So I wouldn't spend all that time. I think it's really weird when people try to spend so much time in it, because like, are you not busy? I'm busy. Stop messaging me. So getting it in person, obviously knowing what you want for yourself, like what is your end goal? Something I feel like we've said a couple of times on here. Because if you do just want to date casually, then date casually. If you want to date someone because you're looking for a relationship, then let your intentions also, you don't have to do in such a intense, like, are you looking for marriage kind of way. But I mean, make decisions based on what your end goal is. If you truly want to end up in a long-term relationship, committed, and end up getting married, and you're out, you know, sleeping with whoever you meet at the club, those don't really line up. But if you're like, I just want to have fun, casual, then sure, those decisions line up. So know what you want, be honest with yourself, and then be honest about the decisions that you're actually making. And then people will only take you as seriously as you take yourself. Mm-hmm. Do you respect yourself? Are you holding yourself to your own standards? Are you making decisions that someone who loves themselves would make? Because I don't take someone seriously if they don't hold their own boundaries, if they don't take themselves seriously. And you can sense it when someone does or if they don't.
Yeah. What about like if a girl's like has a guy like texting them and they really want them to ask them on a date? Because you would suggest, I mean, I'm sure I would, but I'm curious for you. You'd suggest that if you like a guy that you should get them, like they should take you on a date before you even.
Yeah. So in my opinion, I don't want to date a guy who's a bad hunter. If you're about a hunter and provider, like you should be able to go out into the forest with coordinates and be able to find me, is how I want my partner to be. So if you can't even send me a text message to ask me out on a date, then I don't want it. What do you really like about that person besides how they look? If they're not initiating something, then that gives me the ick. So you can wait, and if you're like, well, how do I let him know that I like him? I don't know, heart a story or something. But if he's not going to take the initiative and be pleasant, you can, maybe there's a conversation started there. I suggest not starting the conversation, but a conversation is different. But I wouldn't ask him out. If you're like, oh, but what if he's scared? Then I don't want someone who is so fragile and scared of me rejecting them. And through an Instagram DM.
That's so true. What about girls that like do make the initial? Because I've seen that too.
Yeah.
Like girls that make the initial DM, like, "Hey, how are you?" And I'm like, I would never DM a guy first. But I've seen girls do it, and I'm like, good for you. It's not like I am saying like it's such a bad thing. It's just more so because I would be too scared if I actually was interested. But like, what do you think? What do you think about that? Like a girl initiating.
So I used to be very like, I'm so like confident and fun, and that's what makes me stand out. But it was I read it in a book, and it was the line that he who speaks first is male, and it was all about. It's called Getting to I Do. It's an older book. It's written by a psychiatrist, and she's so like old school about just all of her ideologies. But I thought about every time I was the like confident, like cool girl, I'm gonna pursue him first. It always ended up in that masculine feminine polarity where then I was the masculine energy, and I don't want that. So you can do it if you want to, and see how the relationship turns out. See for yourself. Don't take my word for it.
Or is the guys that like, because I've seen guys end up dating girls that like the girl made the move. Is it just because the guy's more in their feminine?
Yeah,
if they're
I'm
like
if
attracted
if
to
you
that?
want a girl who pursues you, go get it. It's not gonna be me.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't want that. That's not attractive to me.
Yeah.
So, but there is no like, oh, how do I make him? Even in that, listen to your words. How do I make someone that's so, I don't want to make anyone do anything. Like, be who you are. Let people act how they want. And if it matches with my lifestyle and me and what I want, then cool. And if it doesn't, why would I force them to make them do something?
Okay, so say like a girl's in a room, they're out at a party, and they see a guy they think is cute. What advice would you give her to go about getting him to feel comfortable to walk up to her?
Eye contact. Like, you know the look.
I am too
Like,
scared to do it, but yeah.
that would be the thing where I'd be like, practice your bravery in looking at someone and holding their gaze.
Oh, it makes me sick.
That was something that I guess they used to do in whatever 1920s, where they would have their handkerchiefs and they would drop it like next to the man, and so he'd pick it up and then say something. I feel like we could come up with our own version, like throw your drink at him, whoopsie. No, don't do that. But you could, drop, I don't know, figure out something to drop. Or he's looking at you, look, smile. Frightening. But those would be the things I would say to practice.
I feel like if I think a guy's cute, I like don't even want to look at them.
I know. But you should practice. If you want that. If you're like, oh, I want him to, then eye contact.
Yeah.
Look, hold it, smile. All those things you're open to doing.
Yeah.
And then he can, if he's in his masculine hunter pursuer energy, then he can come and talk to you. And that's awesome when that happens. Like, you'll start to practice and it's fun.
Yeah, because I guess like there's different ways guys approach you. Sometimes guys just legit walk up to you, didn't even see them, and they're like, hey. And it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
But then there's the ones that are like not really sure, and then they like stare at you and stare at them, and then like sometimes they're still too scared to even walk over, even after smiling and everything. But
I need
keep
someone
looking.
who's stronger than that, so I wouldn't think of it as a loss.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. I had a guy one time who I was on a boat, and he saw me pass by. He went on another boat. It was probably like, it was far away. He jumped off the boat and he swam to me.
Aww.
To ask me out.
That's
so
cute.
People, they'll do it. The right ones, and that's such a good like love. It didn't work out, but it would have been a cute love story to tell.
He jumped off the boat and swam to me.
Yeah, more than like I slid into his DMs and said, "Will you take me on a date?" Like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, interesting. That's so cool. Okay, so tell us about your coaching groups and your private sessions. What are those like?
Yeah, so if you're listening to this and you're like, number one, I need help, or I need to increase my self-awareness, I have an ebook on that for healing. It's called My Healing Blueprint. I would suggest that for everyone.
Read it.
Yeah, it's both a journal interactive ebook. You download it, and there's spots for you to fill in, for you to journal. There'll be things for you to read. It's just going to unlock so much of your self-awareness. Then I also take on clients either privately, so on a one-on-one session, if you're like, I'm really struggling with this, I am healing from a breakup, healing from a past narcissistic abuse relationship, I just need help. That's great. And then I also have my inner circle, which is a super affordable option, and we meet every single week on our Monday sessions. We work just on self. What are your personal goals, becoming better, and then Wednesday it's all about relationships, which is that's a hugely popular group.
Yeah.
And so you come in and you check in and talk about your stuff. Everyone learns from each other. There's so much. It could feel scary to join a group, but you'll realize like all of the themes are so similar.
That's cool. So you kind of learn from each other.
You do, yeah.
That's awesome.
And then there's a empowerment thing of like, you're not so alone while going through it.
That's so cool. Do you feel like you've helped a lot of people like with their relationships, whether it's to like connect with their partner more or to know when to leave?
Yeah, it's awesome seeing it. Like, I have girls that they'll have worked with me for a couple months and they're like, I would have done this and now I'm not doing that. I always say to them, I'm like, any change of perspective is a miracle. So if you're listening to this and it gave you a change of perspective, any change of perspective is a miracle, because how we view the world goes into our decision making. When you make decisions based off of how you see the world, you're going to make different ones. So that literally changes your life. When you make decisions based off how much you love yourself instead of how much you hate yourself, your entire world will change. And like, it's so cool because I have had clients who I've worked with for over a year. I have one client and she was in such just relationships that they weren't ever abusive, but they were just like C- relationships. And she was always questioning. She was always confused. Does he like me? Does he not? Always back and forth. And now she's ended those relationships. She's in a relationship now. It's so beyond healthy. And like, they're literally, I know they're going to get engaged. It's amazing. But, and it goes to show it wasn't just about waiting and needing to find the right guy. Like, she had to heal those parts of her that kept attracting something that was confusing and unfulfilling and stayed in those. That is what had to actually get healed to attract the right person. It wasn't luck. It wasn't the right person finally slid in my DMs. It was, now these are the things that I view attractive: consistency and trust. And they have adventure still. He's fun. He's not like, oh, he sounded good on paper. Like, it's everything.
What about for girls that are like in a healthy relationship, but they just don't feel the spark and they're like constantly trying to work on it, but they're like, because I've had girls tell me, they're like, I can't tell if it's like me having trauma and I just don't feel like I have a good guy and maybe it's just, I just don't feel it.
Yeah.
And so they like can't decide if they should like move on.
Yeah. It's so nuanced. Like, that would be like a private session, because it does depend on so many things. It could be self-sabotage. It could be he's just boring. It could be you are just used to chaos. It could be it's not the right fit. But all that, it's very like case by case.
Because you have to probably like dig in and figure out like how they were raised and with their parents.
Yeah,
and, like,
there will be things they say too, and there'll be things they like say about him if it's the right fit. I can tell.
Wow, that's so cool. Okay, cool. Yay. Well, everyone needs to go book a session with you and download your ebook. It was so fun chatting with you. You've already opened up my mind to so many things. So tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find me on my Instagram at JULIE THEIS Official, or on TikTok at Psych Advice is my handle there.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. She's growing so quickly. So go visit her and follow her videos. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun.
I know, so fun. So as always, thank you, my $1 billion baby, for listening to today's episode. I'm going to be reading and responding to all your comments. Let me know what parts resonated the most. And let me also know what you'd like to hear on future episodes. I'm going to be releasing new episodes every Tuesday, and you can find me on all social media platforms, TARUHHH, and $1 billion baby on podcasts for Spotify and Apple.